Hello, welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. I've got all the way from Denver, Colorado, with the most beautiful backdrop you're coming to the back of end of summer, but I'm here to welcome Elizabeth, but known as Liz Sherman Littleton. Welcome to the show, Liz.
Thank you. Thank you for
You.
having me.
No, thank you. And you've just recently come back from Australia, where from what I understand, were skydiving in Melbourne. You've been to Sydney, you've been to Cairns, you've
Yes.
been everywhere. You had a stint of living in Tassie. You also had did a swap house in New Zealand. So it sounds like you spent a bit of time
In
here.
a few places.
And I've done it, and I've been to Colorado. So we're kind of like, we'll do a swap someday. And I'm joking, but.
There you go. There you go. Hey, you know what? If you're going to go anywhere in the States, Colorado's, the place to be.
Oh yeah, yeah. You've got the
I'm a
beauty.
little partial,
Yeah,
but
you've got the beauty of summer, but then you've got the beauty of winter. Oh my goodness!
it's a
Uh,
pretty place.
remind me to tell you after the show about the time I was driving back from. I can't remember whether it was steamboat or Telluride, and driving back down to the airport, and just kept wanting to veer into the mountains because I was driving on the wrong side of the road.
I've been there on the other side, but yes, I've been there.
But that's not what we're talking about today. Liz, you're quite incredible. You've got four boys, which is wild in itself. And I didn't ask how old they were, but I'm sure you'll share that. But they must keep you super active. But you're also the founder and executive director of Lighthouse Assisted Living and Specialty Transportation. And you've recently had an article, from what I understand, in International Business. So I'd love you to talk a little bit about that. But it's so beautiful hearing your story because, Lighthouse Assisted Living is a network of boutique style care homes in Colorado. You've had over 25 years experience and you've built a reputation for compassionate, individualized care that feels more like home than a facility. And your vision for
Absolutely.
Lighthouse began with a belief that aging and assisted living should honor dignity, community, and connection. Given we're in such a interesting time as well, where we're having more and more people living longer, it's great to think that there's people like you out there making this impact and change in the world when it comes to, assisted care with dignity. Your company operates multiple residences designed to provide both quality healthcare and a sense of belonging for both residents and their families. And beyond the role that you've got as an operator, from what I understand and see, is that you're a leader in I would say soulful conscious elder care, where it's, you're balancing the clinical needs with human needs and creating environments that uplift both staff and residents, as well as navigating the challenges of scaling a business in a sector that is deeply personal and from what I
Yes,
understand, deeply intense.
it
It's
is.
24/7, especially with elderly, and not always, resourced or, accordingly. Tell us about your
Yeah,
journey. I know it stems all the way back to when you were a teenager. So tell us about your journey.
it does. Like it started when I was 15. My dad was a doctor, and he used to take me on rounds with him to hospitals, nursing homes, and when I was in a nursing home, I remember going into this lady's room, and I'm going to kind of shorten the story, but it's really pivotal with my whole journey, in just how I view seniors. But I remember going to this lady's room, and she had a horrible bed sore, and she was lying in her own lots of material, and her food was over in the corner with the lid still on it, and it was clear, it was way past mealtime, and she was just laying in bed, nobody else was in there, and my dad walked in, and the first thing I remember is he asked her permission for me to be there. And that was that was a huge thing, the fact that, I mean, he was her physician, and just teaching me just from that minute that she had the choice on whether I was allowed to be in there or not, which oftentimes is a very basic thing that most people are not granted, especially if they need you. they're not given permission. Um, and so of course she said yes, and we changed her wound dressing, and he taught me all sorts of stuff. And when we left, everybody was sitting in wheelchairs, and kind of back in the 80s when people were chemically sedated. They're sitting in wheelchairs drooling along the sides of the halls of the nursing home. And I said, Dad, wouldn't it be cool if this lady could, be in a house and she could have a dog running around and she could smell dinner baking because that would smell a whole lot better than what was in her room. And, maybe she could just die with dignity. And he stopped me in the hall and he said, Honey, that's a really good idea. He said, You should do that someday. And so fast forward, my time in India was um, pivotal in how everything from how I view my employees to how I view seniors. India, I've lived there several times, and I I have a very deep respect for that country, and a lot. My heart goes into that country. I just love it. But it was further teaching on just the value of seniors and their wisdom that they have, that I think we're losing a lot of that. I think I think we kind of, in a desire to keep people independent as they age, we've lost what it means to like pass down wisdom from the generations. And so mom and dad, grandma and grandpa living with us, that doesn't happen anymore because they're in the beautiful, retirement village. But something's something's wrong with that. We're missing a lot when it comes to that. So anyway, that's when I was a hospice nurse. When I was a baby nurse, I went into homes like Lighthouse, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my idea. I didn't realize they existed, and that's how we started it. So
Wow. So India, so tell me, because that was like when you booked in to do the pod, the answer you gave me to what's one unique insight or a lived experience in life, leadership, or business. So it's just India. I was just like, oh, I was looking and I was
it
looking.
was too much. It's too much to put down on that answer
No, I know.
because it's just India taught me so much from the view of managing people. I was working in a hospital over there, and how to work with people who were very different from me, and working with women in a country where women were not,
Respected.
they're still not valued or respected, and I'm a very strong woman, so that's not valued or respected. And I had an assault that happened over there, and um, even learning more about when that happened, how I've used that whole time there in this precious place and with precious people. I've used it when it comes to, like I said, managing my employees, managing my house, my home. How do I want my kids to behave? How do I do it all? Because I think women all over the world are expected to do it all. So if you want a career, that's really great. We encourage women to have careers. But if you want a family, you've got to figure out how to do both. And that's sometimes a really hard balance. And it was modeled to me very well over there. I learned a lot by watching these women who they didn't have any like power in society. They didn't have any regard really, and yet I watched what they were able to do and how they were able to use circumstances to benefit what they were trying to accomplish. And it was just a really wonderful experience. And
Yeah.
that was my second time living there. My first time, it was mostly I did a trek. I did like a 100-mile trek, and we delivered medical care. Um, in between the days, we would hike, and then the next day we would pull teeth and deliver medical care. And even that time, I learned how to create a sterilization technique when we were in the middle of the Himalayas, where we had nothing, and yet they needed their teeth pulled, and so we were trying to figure out a way to pull people's teeth but keep things clean and sterile. And so I created this little system that was very simple, but it was a it it worked. And you have to be creative, and you have to think outside the box, and you have to try things, not be scared to try things. And so all that stuff I learned a great deal while I was there. So
Incredible. And so then you've come back and you then have decided that you want to work in, I mean, obviously continue to work in, aged care, etc. So how did then Lighthouse come about? And I certainly also want to I'm curious about this wisdom piece and because you talked around this wisdom piece and I'm sure that's come somewhat out of India as well, but this wisdom piece and it's not there's this kind of it's not translating through, and how do we ensure that it does translate through to the up and coming generations? And I'd love to understand how you're potentially doing that through through the business, through Lighthouse Assisted Living. Yeah.
when I came back from India the second time, that's where I decided I wanted to be a nurse. And I come by it very naturally because my mom is a nurse, my dad was a doctor, and so I come by very naturally. But I was going to be the next Stephen King, so I was going to write books and be a New York Times bestseller, Liz. That was going to be me. Um, and I decided I wanted to be a nurse, and so I went to nursing school, and the only job I could find was at in Memphis, Tennessee, which I'm very glad I'd never visited there before I moved there because I wouldn't have gone back. But I found a job in Memphis, Tennessee, and um, ended up working at St. Jude Children's Hospital there. And I worked in the ICU, and I didn't realize at the time that it was really guiding me towards hospice and just end of life care and dignity at end of life. So even these young babies that, died way before they should have, they were given dignity. And I saw that at St. Jude. I was able to see that in action. And so then I moved to Colorado, went to nurse practitioner school, and I got a job at a hospice. I had no idea what hospice was, even though I'd worked at the end of life. I didn't know what hospice, that wasn't really a big thing back then. And so I got a job and I found my niche and I just loved it. So I started with pediatrics, and helped to start the first pediatric team in Denver and moved into geriatrics, which is where I found my passion, of course. I think I'm passionate about a lot of things. Every time I think about my history and why I am where I am, is a lot of it's because I see opportunities in a whole lot of different things. And so anyway, but hospice is where I landed, and I ended up going into these residential homes that had 6 or 8 people in them. And I was thinking, gosh, that's exactly what I told my dad, you know, all those years ago. That's what I told him I thought would be a great idea. And my husband, he's a CPA, and it took him a little while to get on board with it, but he got on board with it, and that's how we started Lighthouse. And we lived in the basement for 2.5 years, had our first 2 kids in the basement while we just saved up money to be able to buy another house and then our own home.
Wow.
So that's how Lighthouse started.
And
It's
how
been
did
26 years.
how did you come up with the name Lighthouse? Like what was it? Like was it yeah.
We we were driving one day and we're trying to figure out a name for the business, and we wanted something that exemplified our faith, something that like just had some root of faith, but we also didn't want something that was like, we don't want to like ostracize anybody or make anybody feel excluded, I guess. And so Lighthouse just kind of sprung in my head, and Tom was like, "Oh, that's a great idea," And so we came up with all different taglines like, "Come to the light, but don't,"
See the light.
so like, like all sorts of really funny things that we came up with. But after we came up with the name, it was great because there's a ton of stuff out there for lighthouses. So it turned out really well, but it really was rooted in a lot of humor and talks just driving in the car.
Yeah, right. And are you seeing a lot more like elderly, like that, like I was mentioning before, around there's more and more people. It's like that are going to live longer, like and
Yes.
it's going to continue to happen.
Yeah, I don't know that I mean, yes, they're living longer. I think we're seeing more though in long-term care. I
Yes.
think people I think parents are saying, I don't want to be a burden to my kids. And kids are growing up hearing that from their parents that mom, oh, I don't want to be a burden. I, don't- I I want to make sure I'm good financially. I want to make sure that we take care of all this stuff so that I'm not a burden to my kids. You know, Me on the other hand, I have four boys. I had four boys in 5 years.
Oh,
And I I raised my boys
how old are they?
that let's see, now they're 22 down to what is 17 to 22. So in fact, I just took our third back to college. He's in Arizona, so we just went back to college yesterday. But
Mm.
but I raised them not at all saying I was going to be a burden. I told them flat out, if I live that long, that you have to take care of me, that's a blessing for you. And that's a blessing for your kids. And that's like there's a lot of wisdom that's passed down,
Yes.
like we were talking
I
about.
wanted to talk about this.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't think when you have parents who live in the home with your kids, they hear stories. They hear, oh, this happened to me once. Even simple things like I remember one time one of my boys, and I forget who it was like breaking up with a girl, and my dad, was talking about, one of the girls he dated when he was in middle school, and it facilitated this whole discussion about dating, and they got to learn about my dad. First of all, they got to learn that grandpa was in the same boat that they are. Environment might have changed. They might know more now, technologically speaking, but at the end of the day, people are people. And grandpa dealt with some of the same things that they dealt with. And they got to hear, stories of my mom breaking up with her first, they were engaged, and so like dating is the first thing that I think about because of the stories that even recently have been told. My dad's gone, but um my mom is still alive, and the stories that are told, and that's a wisdom that's passed down. We don't see it that way because they're stories, but how they coped with things when they were their age, that's wisdom. Even if it's like, man, I really screwed that one up. I should have done that a lot differently. I wish I'd done this. When your kids hear that from whether it's parents, grandparents, great grandparents, friends, when kids hear those things and they have honest transparency, which I do think when you're living together happens unintentionally. I mean, you can't hide a whole lot when you're living under the same roof. But I think there's wisdom that comes from that. So, and I think we're missing it. I think we're missing the boat in a day and age where information is so easy to access. we're we're really missing out on
Yeah.
a big part of information. So
So how do you even solve that? Like how are you bringing like with Lighthouse, how are you like obviously you're caring for the older generations and my one I've had experience with my aunts and Nana living in assisted living and back in the day and some of the stories you were just talking about before, yeah, I still feel triggered and traumatized by what I used to see at times. It's
yeah,
obviously changed a lot now. But I religiously went and saw my aunt and Nana like weekly. And, it was always the conversation, listening to the stories like you're talking about.
I
How do
think that's it right there is just talking. I think I like facilitating activities and things that we do, even at Lighthouse. Like a lot of our activities, we invite families to be part of. We create memory boxes. We did an activity for many years, and I'm trying to get it started now after COVID. Hate COVID. But I'm trying to get it started again. But we had 90 first graders come, and like all these first graders with their teachers and their volunteers, we blocked off a whole cul-de-sac. All of our homes got together, and these little first graders, they had been reading a story about a grandmother who lost her memory, and they were helping her find it. And so they created memory boxes, and they would put special things from their childhood in their memory boxes. And so, like, you know, little girl would have, like, this is my blanket that when I was a baby I slept with. And they would have to share that with all of our seniors. And our seniors have problems. They're not we specialize in dementia and end of life care. So our seniors are not the ones who are walking around and want
no,
to go find a child to talk to. These can be scary people to talk to because it looks scary. If somebody's had a massive stroke, it looks scary. If they can't talk, it looks scary. It sounds scary. And so I had an ice cream truck, and in order to get ice cream, they had to share their box with five seniors. And so they would go around and they would share their boxes. And that's just one of, like, that was a really big event that we did. And we did it every year for 10, 12 years maybe until COVID hit and that knocked it out. But that was a big event that we did that was really that was that was the purpose of it, was how do you how do you help the younger generation feel comfortable with seniors? A volunteer program. I'm amazed at how many volunteers I get that call and say they've called 10 places and nobody's called them back. And so they stumble upon Lighthouse, and I think, gosh, don't they want volunteers? Like, I mean,
it's also
like
though for me,
that's
yeah,
important.
100%. But it's also for me what you're doing is you're also you're interconnecting younger generations with the elderly in a way that then like because if you think about it we're in this world full of tech and instant kind of instant gratification, instant dopamine, instant everything. And I see it, and I've got, my parents like they're in their, I say early 70s, but like it's different to like I guess the younger ones, behave differently with the elderly from when I was, it's a different it's completely different, and
It's a
like
different generation.
you've got tech, you've
Well,
got
and even though, like, even having kids help elderly with techie stuff. So that's like we've done a lot with virtual reality because that's something that young people are comfortable with. So if you say, okay, I want you to come in and go to the Grand Canyon on the VR goggles, that's something that a young person is going to feel more comfortable with versus, hey, could you come and read trivia to some old people? You know, Whereas when I was their age, trivia was it, right? That was what we did. But the VR goggles, techie stuff, I had some young kids come over, and this was just to help them with volunteer hours. But they came over and they helped two or three of our residents create like LinkedIn profiles. And I had to tell him, fortunately, I came in at the end because I was like, no, you can't put this stuff. I had to be careful putting stuff online, but it was really a great, the interaction was really great.
Yeah,
I
because you're
mean,
giving back youth. You're almost giving back this sense of it's full circle. It's full life circle, right? Like in terms of what you're doing.
yep,
I absolutely love it because the younger generation are getting the wisdom and, like you say, there might be years difference, but reality is same situations. It's human.
people are people.
People are people. It's human situations. Everyone's had like heartbreak and like lots of different experiences in life. Like, and so I think sometimes the younger ones like, oh, they wouldn't know. They've never been through what.
Right,
And it's like, no, no, no. And then when you start to hear a story, you're like, oh, you've had a lot happen. Like,
right.
and but then also like I know at times like especially mom, she's very cute. My mom's very curious and a lifelong learner and always interested, but she wants to, she doesn't just want someone saying to her, coming in and going 100 miles an hour at her and like almost like it. So it's taking the time to also, but then once she's into it, she's completely, all over the tech. And so, but that's because that's rejuvenating. That's giving
That's
her
right.
the ability to feel young still, and she's young, so
And
she
to feel connected.
and feel
The
connected.
more the more that tech grows and seniors are separated, the bigger the differences between the two. Because seniors, it does, gosh, I mean, I'm 50. It takes me longer to like just catch on new things, you know? And so I think about our seniors, if they have any cognitive problems too, it does take longer and it's good for kids to know that because even if that kid goes on to be a teacher, let's say they want to be a kindergartner teacher, those are valuable lessons. Like working with somebody who doesn't get it right away that's a valuable lesson that you can take with you no matter where you go. Forget even just the wisdom of connecting generations. Um, there's wisdom in life that comes from that too. So like this little in a group of three volunteers, there was one girl who was really good, even though she was only like 13. She came in and she taught well, and I thought, okay, like that's I bet she does something with teaching because she she was good at that. And I told her that, and you could tell like she was like, really? I've never done that before. So all of it, when you mix it all together, it's just more about relationships too, I think. And the more we're in relationship with each other, the more wisdom is going to be passed, even between friends. If you don't talk about what's happening and how things really are, if your life is just Instagram or Facebook, whatever you're on, if that's your life,
It's not
you're not
reality.
seeing people, it's not real.
No.
And so I feel like wisdom comes from that, the reality of it too.
Yeah, it's all that lived experience, right? In terms of even going back to
Yep.
when you were 15 and that lived experience with your dad being the doctor and going in and it's actually informs the rest of your life and your career in terms of, I think that's more and more what this is about. Like, and then we're pursuing, our purpose, our mission in life, the impact and the change we want to make. It's very purpose driven. And I think that what you're doing is incredible because you're gifting, the younger generations the opportunity to see it with a lens of you can do this, you could be this, and almost
Yep.
shining that light. And back to the older generations, you can teach there's a book, Stephen Kotler wrote it, around you can teach a dog old tricks. You can, you can.
Yep.
It's a cognitive perspective. It might take a bit longer, but it actually is proven from a neuroscience and flow science perspective, and that's what you're
I
doing.
have a I have a really cool, and I'm going to interrupt you just because this is so pertinent to what you're saying. And it was my own little experience personally. And so I have a little lady that has dementia. And so dementia, short-term memory loss, right? So they don't remember a lot about today, but 50 years ago they remember. Every time I'm in one of my houses, when I leave, I sing a song, the same song. And I went in there a week ago, and this little lady, look, she pulled my face close to hers, and she knew every word to the song that I sing. And I like, she doesn't have the ability to like, she wouldn't have remembered that. She's never known it before. And then all of a sudden, the other day, like it just something clicked. And as soon as she was able to make eye contact with me, she recited she sang the whole thing with me.
Love
And it
it.
was just really cool because I thought people do learn. And if you think you're not making an impact, you are, so
That's so beautiful. That would have brought a tear to my eye having like,
it was really cool.
yeah, it was really cool. So what's next for you guys? Like what's you sound like you've got tons of wisdom, you travel a lot, you're you know, constantly filling up that soul in your cup. What's
Yeah.
next for you guys?
I started a company called Specialty Transportation, and it started again thinking outside the box. This family is trying to case manage their mom who lived clear across the country. And I was like, God, wouldn't it be great if they could get here, if she could live here? And they're like, it's going to be like $50,000 to bring her here medically. Like, we can't do it. And so I said, look, how about I go down there? I'll bring her back and you just pay my way. And that way she could be close and she could die at least with her family. And so I went down there, I picked her up, put her in a car, put her on an airplane, flew her back to Colorado, and she died a year and a half later. And it kind of gave me this, I mean, people kind of know me as like a crazy one, the one who I'll go out and I'll do anything, I'll just
I can see
say
that.
jump out of a plane, I will do it.
I can
I
see that.
love the thrill and the adventure of learning things like that.
Curiosity.
But it started people wanting to do this and at a fraction of the cost. And so I started a company. I had to. It got so busy that I actually had to incorporate and started STC. And so that's kind of our new thing is helping to relocate people from all over the world. I mean, gosh, I helped a gal coming from India actually, um, trying to get back to the States to be with her family before she died. So that's my new adventure
And so,
is kind of, and it
wow.
works with Lighthouse too.
Yeah, I
So
was about to say it feels interconnected. Yeah,
mhm.
absolutely. Two last questions for you. How do you keep your cup full? So you right back to the start of the show, you talked around, can women do it all? Like, like the career, the family, like it's not easy. How do you keep your own cup full? How do you do it?
So I mean, it sounds kind of cliche, but boundaries. I learned pretty early on that, especially when you're married to your business partner and you want to stay married or keep your business or both, you feel like you have to make a choice all the time. And I feel like if you take that choice out of it, it makes it possible. And so, just simple things like dinner we always had dinner together, always. And as the boys got older, that wasn't, that was even when they come home to visit, they know that just that's a house rule. We all eat dinner together. And if you're not going to be there for dinner, you ask permission. You don't tell me, you ask because it's respectful. It's our house. And so little things like that. I mean, the confessions that I've heard, just dinner table. So that's something we put our phones down. I always have to have my phone somewhat available because of my role. But even me, I have special ringtones for the two people that if I get a call from those two people, I have to answer. And those two people respect my time. So they don't abuse the fact that I answer their calls. So like boundaries are huge. I'm big on fun. I love to have fun. I love to travel. Traveling was is one of the few times that we really get away. So, and it's funny, but everybody says, "Oh, you've been all over the world," and I I wish people realized how important it is for me to have a 12-hour or more time difference. Because if I have that, then I only have a couple hours a day where those two people that will call me can call me. The rest of the time they're asleep, so or I'm
I know I
asleep.
used to love that too. Yeah, it's that whole
It's the best.
just being able to switch off, isn't it? But it also gives you fresh perspective. Like you're
Yes, it
actually
does.
taking time out to then come back with new ideas, like constantly reshaping, shaping, like I love
I
that.
think that's a big part of it too. Like I mentioned, thinking outside the box. I think when you travel, the more I travel and the longer times that I spend with different people, I learn. I learn so much, and I love to learn different things. I hate school, but I love to learn. And so I work with Project Cure, and I go all over the world with them, and work with different medical communities, and I learn things medically that I never would have learned
Yeah.
if I just stuck to my box.
Yeah. So be curious, explore the unknown.
Yep.
What would be
Be
one
curious and don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. No, no, no. And so I guess to end the show on that, what would be some wise words for you on life advice in general? It's just gonna be a general one.
I think you have to know yourself. And again, it sounds cliche, but sometimes people think it's bad if you're not the business owner. And I'm really thankful for the people who aren't and who know that about themselves. And I think too many people try to be something that they're not, or they don't know what they're good at. And like I feel like it's really important to know what your gifts are, know what you're good at, and go that direction. Don't just pick something because it's the smart thing to do, or everybody says you should do, or for whatever reason. Don't The only reason you should pick is because you're following yourself.
Yeah, I love it.
So
Liz, it's been such an honor and privilege to talk to you. How do we find out more about
thank
you?
you.
Got so much like wise words. How do we find out more?
Oh, you can see us on the web, lighthouseassistedliving.com and specialtytc.com.
Specialty.
So
And then you're on obviously
yeah.
on LinkedIn.
And I'm on, yeah, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and it's Liz Sherman Littleton, I think is what
Cool.
my other social media
I'll
is.
find it and I'll add it to the show notes. Well, I'm gonna let you. Oh my God, I'm just like it's freezing cold here. Like I've got the heater on 28 degrees. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, right? I
Oh,
never
look how
do.
beautiful.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh, so stunning. We've got blue skies here and sun, but it was 0 degrees here overnight. So it's like
oh,
I'm watching you and I'm like, I can just feel that sun radiating in the warmth. And yeah, anyway, so
it is. It's beautiful.
as you're heading into autumn and then winter, we're heading into spring and summer. So it's
Yeah.
very cool. But
And then I'm gonna want to be there. So
and I'm gonna want to be at the slopes. I love yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Liz, thank you so much. You have a wonderful evening and loved all the wisdom, wise words, and love what you're doing and the way you're bringing the generations together and the
Thanks.
care that you are taking with such a beautiful older generation who have so much. Yeah, I love it. I just absolutely love it. Yeah,
Just remember they have a lot to share. So
you've made my yeah, it's a good reminder to us all. Thank you.
yep. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks.